We're really excited to be kicking off a new segment of Wealth Management Mixtape, which we're calling the Shakeup. It's a podcast that talks with decision makers in cutting-edge companies looking to shake up an industry. Joining us for our unofficial first episode of the Shakeup is Scout Brisson, the CEO of Dessoir, a non-alcoholic aperitif beverage company founded by Katy Perry and Morgan McLaughlin. Yes, that Katy Perry. Scout shares with us her story, how her life shifted rapidly from pre-med at MIT to the CEO of Dessoir, a company that's forging a new path of cocktail-friendly and healthy non-alcoholic drinks. She discusses the path forward, the challenges and opportunities the company might face. We even do a quick taste test. Thanks for watching. Cool. Well, we're excited to have Scout Brisson with us, the CEO of Dessoir. She'll tell us more about the product in a little bit. But thanks for joining us here on our podcast.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks, Jake and Tim.
So, Scout, it's great to finally have you on the podcast. And for those who don't know, you and I grew up in the same town and went to high school together. But a lot has happened since then. So could you tell some of our listeners about your background and how you eventually found Dessoir?
Yeah. So after I left Morristown, I went to MIT. I studied neuroscience there. So my plan initially was to be a doctor. I was pre-med, but was pretty burnt out from school. And I joke around, but the Boston winters are brutal. And New Jersey definitely does not prepare you for that. So I kind of had a plan in my head. I was like, I'm going to get out of Boston. I'm going to go to California. I'm going to take a little break from this school stuff, and then I'll go back to medical school. But I'd wanted to try something very different. So I went into consulting. I was at McKinsey out in LA. Didn't really know what consulting was until I went through the interview process. But turns out, as a lot of us know, it's a great way to, I think, really discover what you're excited about and what you're interested in. So I was at McKinsey for a few years. Really grateful for that experience because I think it's a great training ground, and you're working with a lot of people that, structure problem solving, different business settings, different size businesses, different functions. And through that, I think I learned that, one, you can be really good at things that aren't school. And then two, that I wanted to get more entrepreneurial. So I made my way from McKinsey into the VC space. I was at a consumer fund out in Santa Monica, where I was actually part of their in-house venture studio. So they had, they were partnering with what I would call kind of big consumer conglomerates, taking product and IP that they had developed and launching those businesses direct to consumer. And this was really, at the kind of forefront of D2C business building too, as a way to, outside of obviously your retail channels, learn about your consumer and speak directly to them. So I think that's where I got really hooked and excited about building in the consumer space, building, consumer packaged goods. Started my own business after that. It was CPG business, edible cookie dough enhanced with adaptogens. Really, was scrappy and bootstrapped that for about a year before deciding to move on. And around that time is when I got introduced to Katy and Morgan, our Dessoir co-founders. And they had spent a ton of time working on Dessoir and the business and the brand and the packaging, formulation, everything. And they were looking for someone to really help run the day-to-day. So that's how I made my way to Dessoir. Obviously had a bunch of experiences in between, but feel very fortunate and blessed to be part of the team now.
And how did you meet up with them? Is that I guess, some sort of networking event for celebrities?
I know, right? Like, do those exist? I had a friend that I'd worked at with McKinsey, was working with Morgan specifically on another business that Morgan co-founded, Amass. And Dessoir really was incubated out of the Amass platform.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a younger person, because I know Tim's younger, so by association, right? There's got to be some challenges being a younger CEO, right? You got to overcome that hurdle, I'm sure. How's that been for you?
Yeah, I found it's very important to have people, have a set of, whether it's advisors or people you hire that are experienced in the things that you're not doing. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many people, right, who have built businesses, whether it's like Dessois or not, before, that you can learn from. But also you're doing something net new at the same time. I mean, especially what we're doing Dessois in this category of non-alcoholic, adult beverages it's challenging, and it's a lot of learning and figuring it out. And so I think certainly for me, not having the exact set of work experiences doing it, it's acknowledging that, but knowing, hey, there's just a set of problems every day that we're solving. And I think it's really valuable to have other folks around you that can help fill some of those experience gaps. So specifically on the Dessois team, we have a great COO, John Cochran, who is just like the beverage guy and knows how to operate and build beverage businesses. And so he's a phenomenal partner in building Dessois.
And just going back to touch on coming out of MIT and working in consulting at McKinsey, I'm assuming that was kind of the onset where you're starting to work with different businesses and learning a lot in your time at McKinsey. But is that where your entrepreneurial mindset kind of started, or did you have it before you were working in consulting?
I really think it's started then. And somebody was asking that question recently of, were you entrepreneurial in high school, or did you have that before? And I think that the instincts were there, but I was so laser focused on whatever the next step was, right? It was like the college, and then like what comes after college. I actually think McKinsey did a great job of kind of breaking open this idea of like things that are very black and white in school, and showing me, at least personally, that there's this whole world of gray that's in between. And I think I had a hard time at first, I would say, thriving in that ambiguity of like business. But once I got over that hurdle, I think that's where I realized, oh no, it's just, you constantly kind of have to like ask, question yourself, question the path that you're on, and like, how do I break out of, a structured way of thinking that I've been thinking about something to make sure that I'm making the right decision. So I feel like that's a muscle I've been strengthening really since being out of, schooling system.
Yeah, I think that being pre-med probably played a large role in thinking you're going to take one step to the next, and it's very black and white in the progression through med school. And obviously we know a lot of folks who've taken that route, and that's great. But when you start working at McKinsey and you're getting introduced to all these different business segments, I'm sure it had a big impact on your entrepreneurial kind of roadmap to where you are now at Dessois.
Yeah. And I always think of things still similarly from my more scientific education of, it's always one hypothesis after the next. So whether it's a hypothesis for what do I want to do professionally next, or if it's a hypothesis that I'm taking within, who's our customer and when is she drinking this product, right? Like you're constantly just testing that and kind of being way less rigorous about the testing depending on the stage of the business. But I do think some of those principles apply.
We should definitely talk about the product. So we have to hold it up because we have them all in front of us here. So I'm going to crack mine open. I know Tim's already been sipping his because he enjoys it so much. Where did the idea?
I really like the packaging, by the way, or the design on the can. I think it's really neat. Did you have a role in the design, or is that somebody else entirely?
So that work was done before I joined the team. So I mentioned, and I think Jake, you were starting to ask this too, of where did the idea for Dessois come from? So Morgan McLaughlin, who co-founded Dessois alongside Katy Perry, she just has such a rich background in all things botany, alcohol, distilling, really is the genius behind these products. And so she gotten very involved in this category in the earliest days of some brands. And I think saw this opportunity as we were chatting about before, of creating something that was ready to drink. So when you've got a new category, right, you've got to educate consumers on what is this? When do I have it? How do I drink it? What's this going to taste like? I mean, I don't know if either of you had a great idea before you took your first sip of, what is this going to taste like? Something I've had before? Is it going to be totally different? And so for them, and certainly what we've validated since we've launched, having something ready to drink is such a great value proposition, both for the end consumer. And if you think about intermediary in this world right now, bartenders, bars, restaurants, like so short staffed, having a hard time getting people, working, and they just want something they can quickly, pop it open, pour it over ice, and still, get great margins at the end of the day. So Dissois was really, I think, building on a category where consumers are looking for something that they can drink that's satisfying, that's interesting, that's complex, and not feel like they're missing out on that alcoholic option that they're normally consuming, but whether it's trying to be a little bit healthier or, the whole, I don't know if you're both familiar with the whole movement of sober curious, or what I like to call alcohol flexible. People are questioning their relationship with alcohol. When do I want to drink it? Do I want to take a night off? Do I need to get up early tomorrow morning? A lot of our consumers are in a life stage of being a new parent, a new mom. And so there's also this element of, hey, my life looks different than it did when I was in my early 20s. So I think all of those things, right, is really what's speaking to the end consumer with the products that Morgan and Katie really crafted.
And you mentioned bars. So is that part of the distribution plan? Or I guess what in an ideal world, right? Where does this end up from a distribution standpoint? Is it bars? Is it Whole Foods? Is it, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So today most of our business is actually online. So we launched direct to consumer, on drinkdissois.com in January. And really from a business lens, I mean, it's a great way to ramp up really quickly. Of course, speak to Katie's audience, learn about our customer, learn about, what feedback they have about the product and our messaging. But ultimately, people are shopping beverage in store. They're getting exposed to new products, new brands at restaurants, at bars. And so we're really focused right now on building out our wholesale presence. And that really does cover the on and off premise. So on premise will be a great point of discovery for a lot of people. And then off premise will be a place where, you're walking through, like you said, your Whole Foods aisle or your, kind of corner store bodega, and you're able to pick up a bottle or a 4-pack of Dissois. So definitely all those channels are really, really important to us today, and will continue to be important to us as we scale.
And I know you mentioned this in the beginning, but the this is something that I have an interest in, which is the adaptogen story, right? Which is right on the can here. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and the importance of that and kind of maybe the reasoning behind kind of combining the two ideas?
Yeah. So I think, the number one reason people are drinking less alcohol today than they used to is really driven by health and wellness trends. And I say trends very lightly, because I think health and wellness is actually something that has been proven. It's here to stay, right? Consumers are focused, and every generation is focused on this kind of more and more every year. And so knowing that, the number one thing that as people learn about the impact that alcohol can have on their health, and we're not here to be finger wagging. Like, we like to drink just as much as your next person, and Dissois can be great mixed in with some mezcal too. But the adaptogens, I think, really add a ton of value from a functional standpoint. So not only, when you're drinking a can of Dissois, do you get, a great ingredient list, a great taste profile, but you're actually getting that added value of adaptogens like L-theanine, which is derived from green tea, from ashwagandha if you're drinking purple loon, or from reishi mushroom if you're having champignon dreams. And this really, from a physical standpoint, can also lead to a relaxation and kind of like just an ease feeling for a lot of folks. And so I think there's certainly a bit of the physical value that customers are deriving.
And Scott, what's like the goal for Dissois? Do you see it as like a independent brand moving forward? Like what is like your idea for Dissois, I guess, in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So from a, distribution standpoint, I certainly would like Diswa to have a much bigger footprint, and we're well on the way there with some great recent distribution partner launches and conversations that we've been having on the retail side. I think net for Diswa to be at the front and center of taking this category to the mainstream and really being, the number one is where we see it. And I think that in doing that, there's going to be a lot of work along the way to educate kind of all parts of the country on what this looks like, whether that's through Instagram, whether that's through trade press or earned media. I think there's going to be a lot of channels that we're going to work hard at to get there, but really it's about Diswa taking non-alc in the US and helping develop the category and bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, and you say like more people are becoming aware of their alcohol intake, or as you named it, alcohol flexible, which I know a lot of folks, especially Jake now with his kids at home, is kind of cut it out altogether. But it seems like just like looking at the can and the way that you guys have marketed on your website, it would almost be like the perfect type of product to market on like an Instagram, a new category, something that's trendy. It looks really marketable. But I guess that's part of your plans to advertise it in that setting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim, you're hired,
and I think yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's, like the way people shop when it comes to brands, it's like brand first, right? Do I like the way it looks? Do I like what they're telling me on the packaging? Again, we go back to that idea of taste, and that's number two, where people are going to pick it up off the shelf because it looks really interesting or because they see it on Instagram from their favorite influencer. And then taste is what's going to keep them coming back. And we've been really excited. One of the things you can track online very easily is just repeat purchase. So we've got a ton of people that are subscribing to this to, get basically a full, case of cans every month because they've really built it into their everyday. And maybe Jake, they're like you, right? Where they're like, I'm on the way to switching, or I've totally cut something out, or just a few nights a week, I want to cut back.
It's not forever with me. I'm at some point, I'll go back when my kids sleep well or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, kind of shifting gears a little bit, but what's, I always find when people start new ventures or join an executive team like yourself at a new company, there's always something that kind of surprises them about either the industry or the company. So I'm just curious as to, if you found something that was good or bad. Right? It could be either one that surprised you about, leading Diswa. Yeah.
It's funny. This shouldn't have been surprising to me because I went through this experience, but before I joined the Diswa team, I definitely had multiple, instances where I tried other products in the category, and I didn't really enjoy the taste of any of them. So it didn't stick for me. Once I started drinking Diswa, I realized that I've never liked to drink that much, but during the pandemic, like many of us, I think alcohol became more a part of my everyday than before. So for me, it was, okay, I'm going to have a glass of wine, 3 nights a week. And that really was a marker for the end of my day, was when I was, pouring my Sauvignon Blanc out. And so I think the opportunity to have something that can be that marker, that can be that experience, right? Really something that's sensory. I drink now probably once a week, and it's always socially when there aren't other great non-alcoholic options on the menu. And so I think just a surprising thing to me has been the number of people who have that same experience, right? Who say, I didn't even know that I needed something like this in my life. And going back to this big idea of what has to happen, if we think about the expansion plans that Diswa has, that the growth of the category, the potential of growth that the category has, I think it's helping people understand that products like this do exist. And now they have to go find the right ones for them that they enjoy, that can help them feel like they're not missing out on that experience, whether it's at home or with their friends. And so I just continue to be amazed by the number of people that are really resonating and experiencing the product in that way.
It's got to be one of the challenges has to be just the education around it, because not the alcohol thing itself. Everyone knows most people should know alcohol's bad, but it's still enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
But the education around that there are these things that can help your health that, by the way, are in our drink, or help you relax, that sort of thing. That's I'm interested.
Saying here's how. Let me look at the can right now so I don't screw up the names of any of these. But here's how passion flower helps you, or L-theanine helps you, that sort of thing. What's that focus been like? Is there an education going on around the actual ingredients, or is it here's the drink and oh, by the way, it also helps you do this?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're on our site, we've got a botanical glossary that's on our website that outlines a little bit of the historical context of some of the ingredients, the taste profile, some of the benefits. We've actually seen, so to go back to Tim, as you were talking about on Instagram and some of the marketing that we're doing there. I mean, when we have, an infographic post that goes up on our feed about what are adaptogens and then talking about, what they are, the value that they bring, those are some of our most shared and engaged with posts. So there's really consumer appetite for, and that's who we're speaking to, right? Is somebody who really cares about the quality of ingredients that they're putting in their body. But there's definitely a ton of consumer interest. And so we're very much, whether it's through email, through our website, through Instagram, talking about what those are and why we included them in as well.
I find that really interesting because, there's like almost two categories when it comes to social media or Instagram, what people gravitate towards. You're saying that the educational piece of the ingredients and, what kind of makes up Dessois as a product is getting a lot of traction on social media, especially Instagram. When I would think, just my hypothesis would be that just showing the design of the can with a influencer or letting people know that it's Katy Perry's brand would really drive a lot of the traffic on Instagram to your brand. But it is interesting because in some instances, the educational piece kind of outweighs the influencer marketing piece. So that's interesting. And that's also kind of just letting people know about not just your product, but the category in general and saying, here's the alternative that you may not know about otherwise. So I find that really interesting. I wanted to go back and touch on, you mentioned that it's always product first and then what's reinforcing kind of Dessois and why you're so confident in it is that it's a subscription. You're getting people as repeat buyers. Is the subscription kind of the main goal of what you want to get people to? Everybody subscribe to, what is it, every month you receive a package of Dessois or every couple of weeks? Like, what is the subscription option?
Yeah, so for any of the products on our site, you can opt into a subscription. So that could be anything from, I want, 4 cans of Golden Hour at my doorstep every 2 weeks to, okay, I'm going to, like I said, buy a case across all 3 flavors that comes once every 6 weeks. So we offer 2, 4, 6, 8 week subscriptions, and it's a benefit, right? Because you get a bit of a discount with it. You don't have to think about it. And for a brand like us and many brands like our size, you spend a lot of resources, time, energy on customer acquisition. And so the longer the relationship you can have with any given customer that you acquire, the more, profitable essentially that acquisition is. So for a lot of, brands our size and stage, subscription is something that we lean into pretty heavily, especially as you think about shipping liquid cross country, right? Or shipping liquid anywhere. It's very expensive. Yeah. So that's definitely an important facet to our online business.
Is there any goal of rolling this up to another company or a parent company? I know there's the kind of the crossover with a mass. That always, a subscription always strikes me as, it's recurring revenue. That's from a business perspective. That it makes you more marketable if there's ever some courting going on from an acquisition or rolling up to a larger company. Is that in the back of your minds?
Yeah. So there's, in the beverage world, I think a lot of these strategics, and these are on like the Bev Alc side. You've got Diageo and Constellation and AB InBev, right? You've got a lot of these players that really look to innovate through acquisition of brands. And so that's something that definitely they're all interested in this space. I mean, Diageo made an acquisition already with the brand Seedlip, which is a spirit proxy, so kind of most equivalent to a gin a couple of years ago. But they're definitely all keeping an eye on it. And I think that's something because of the when and how people are consuming in this category. It is in that beverage alcohol set. And so I think that's what makes it particularly interesting to some of those players. So certainly for Dessois, I think when you get to the right size and scale, a company like that can just help accelerate and really optimize some of your, both on the distribution and operations side of the business.
Yeah, makes sense. Good.
You know, one thing I like to ask every guest that we have on, and by every guest I mean 2 so far, what is one thing that you wish you knew or you've learned along the way that you might have wished you'd known at the beginning of your journey at Dessois?
That's a good question. Well, I think both my experience now and my experience starting my own company before, I think people talk about grit a lot in the startup space. And I think I've really doubled down to understand what it looks like to have grit, to be gritty. And I think what maybe people don't tell you is that when you're at this size and stage, like the highs are high and the lows are very low. And so I think it's very important to try to, hold on to that feeling from the highs, hold on to the why of what you're building, right? And then when those lows happen, like there's only one way forward, and that's like up, right? It's you're going up or you're going out. And so I think for me, and that's a little bit of a pessimistic way of saying it, but where I'm sitting today, I feel like I've been working on and developing that mindset of when the tough stuff happens, it's just a matter of being very persistent and hungry for continuing that path up. And so I like to say it of like, where there's a will, there's a way. And so that's definitely, some advice I certainly would give anybody else that was starting in my shoes, building a business a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I think especially being in your 20s as a CEO, that's going to come with time, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the luxury of having a 20-year career being a CEO. So I'm sure that will continue to develop for you.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I think it's, it's all, yeah, I think about some of the stuff like very tactically that I didn't know when I started in the space. I was just telling a friend, and I'm like, I didn't know what a co-manufacturer was 2 years ago. And that's how all brands, food and beverage brands our size, they're all using that to get their products made. And I had no idea what that was. And I was trying to find one. So you figure it out and you get a little help along the way, and that can make it a lot easier.
That's great. Well, look, we really appreciate you coming on our podcast today. It was great. It was informative, and we always appreciate getting to know an executive like yourself. And we'll continue, as Tim has already been doing, drinking Dessois. And I like it. This tastes me. This is the I'm going to ruin the name. What's the
Champignon Dreams?
Champignon. There you go. It's good. It tastes a little bit like a Bloody Mary mix. A little bit. I don't know if that's
interesting.
Wrong or right, but it might be the mushroom in it.
Yeah, Jake did say we weren't going to review it on the podcast.
No
but
scales on the 10 or 0 to 10.
We usually on our podcast we had a segment where we'd actually rate beers. Funny enough, we cut it out because we decided, or I guess Jake decided, that his twin 1.5-year-olds was too much to keep drinking his one beer every Thursday. But no, I really enjoyed it. I thought that the marketing and the can were really cool, and I don't know if I was surprised. I didn't know what to think of it before, because I was like, is it kombucha? Is it something similar? And I don't have a great experience trying kombucha in the past, but I actually really enjoyed it. So I would definitely give it a thumbs up.
Oh, I love to hear that.
That's a lot. There's a lot coming from Tim. He's a tough grader. So.
Yeah, I'm a tough critic.
I'm gonna have to learn what you rated all the beers. Amazing.
Okay.
Well, I really appreciate both of you having me on. So thank you so much.